Have you ever paused to consider how many people around you are simply pretending to be virtuous? Diogenes of Sinope, a philosopher from the 4th century BC, had a blunt response. Nearly all of them. He rejected societal norms, lived in a barrel, and had one clear mission: expose the falsehoods embedded in civilization. He wandered the streets of Athens holding a lit lantern in broad daylight, claiming he was searching for a single honest person. Spoiler alert, he never found one. Diogenes wasn't just aiming to shock. He had uncovered something deeply unsettling, even in today's world. We are constantly surrounded by individuals wearing masks of decency, while hiding contradictory intentions within. His cynical philosophy wasn't rooted in bitterness, but in clarity. It required the courage to face life without the rose-colored lenses society encourages us to wear. And perhaps, this message is more relevant now than ever. How many smiles did you receive today that felt rehearsed? How many people asked, "How are you?" without truly caring for the answer? We live in a world where courtesy has turned into performance, and all of us are players in roles we never asked for. Diogenes saw this facade with total transparency. To him, social niceties were like cosmetic stools to mask true identity. When someone compliments you at work, is it genuine or just protocol? When a neighbor greets you with a warm smile, is it heartfelt or simply an obligation? To expose this hypocrisy, Diogenes had his own method. He deliberately broke every etiquette rule. He would dine in public, sleep wherever he pleased, and speak his mind without filter. The reactions were telling. People became irate, disturbed, even hostile. Their true selves emerged the moment the social script was abandoned. Of course, not every polite act is dishonest. Civility can genuinely foster harmony and reflect authentic respect. But Diogenes challenges us to recognize the difference. True kindness exists even when no one is watching, doesn't shift with convenience, and requires no applause. Now consider modern morality. Diogenes would likely question its sincerity. Not the respect for diversity that has always held value, but the ritualization of it. The mechanical repetition of accepted terms and phrases, spoken without thought, serves more as moral theater than real virtue. Notice how some people speak today. Every word seems filtered through an internal approval system, checking for social alignment. They don't speak freely, they perform, as if they've memorized a script on how to be good, yet never cultivated true goodness. Diogenes might argue that this fear of offending is simply a refined version of intellectual fearfulness. When we become so cautious about saying the wrong thing, we eventually stop thinking altogether. You tend to echo conventional truths rather than forge your own beliefs. And that's the contradiction. A generation that celebrates authenticity, yet lives by pre-approved narratives. The irony? This new wave of moral conformity has produced its own kind of fundamentalist people who scan every sentence you speak, poised to condemn the slightest departure from accepted ideology. But does this constant monitoring really make people more virtuous or just more careful? Have we become experts at concealing biases behind polished language instead of addressing them honestly? If you've ever felt guilty for helping someone without documenting it on camera, then welcome to the 21st century. We live in a time where a good deed that isn't shared online seems to hold less value. It's as if kindness only matters when there's an audience. Diogenes lived long before smartphones, yet he understood this moral theater perfectly. For him, real generosity was quiet not because it was secret, but because it didn't need applause. When you do something good to satisfy your conscience, not to earn admiration, the intention changes entirely. Social media has reshaped the currency of virtue. Every kind act can collect likes. Every cause promoted can attract followers. Even sincere compassion gets diluted in this system. More and more, people align with causes not because they believe in their impact, but because of how they enhance one's public persona. But here's a nuanced perspective. Perhaps some of these digital do-gooders genuinely evolve. Maybe what begins with ego gradually transforms into empathy. But still, the dilemma remains. Is it worth turning altruism into spectacle? Diogenes would likely say no. For him, noble outcomes don't justify corrupted motivations. His followers were known as cynics, derived from the Greek word for dog. And that wasn't an insult, it was a model of behavior. Dogs embody an honesty we often abandon with age. They don't pretend to feel emotions they don't. They express needs freely. They're unashamed of being exactly who they are. Diogenes modeled his life after this. He slept when tired, ate when hungry, spoke plainly, without filtering himself for political correctness. To Athens' upper class, this was outrageous. But to him, it was liberation. He realized that most of the cages we live in are of our own design. Imagine it. A man who rejected wealth, titles, and prestige seemed far more content than the most decorated citizen. That image disturbed many because it whispered a painful truth. All our striving to impress others might be completely meaningless. Of course, most of us can't or shouldn't imitate Diogenes' lifestyle. We have responsibilities, people who count on us, goals that require structure. But we can still draw from his insight. Ask yourself, which rules and rituals genuinely support your well-being? And which ones are just elegant prisons you've accepted without question? The message isn't to give up everything, but to thoughtfully choose what's genuinely worth keeping, to find the bravery to let go of what only exists to impress people who may not even truly care. Here's a question that might unsettle you. Do you have the courage to be good in an imperfect way? Because there's a significant gap between polite kindness and brave goodness. The first never causes discomfort. The second, at times, must challenge people to make a real difference. Diogenes was compassionate, but in a way most would label as abrasive. He helped others by cutting through their illusions clearly and often harshly. No gentle phrasing, no sugarcoating. He believed that truth, when delivered swiftly, hurt less, like tearing off a bandage. Today's culture favors a polite form of kindness that avoids tension. It avoids confronting people. It hides hard truths behind diplomacy, all to keep the peace. It's a kind of safe compassion that ensures you're always viewed as nice. But is that truly effective? Real goodness often means you need the courage to go against expectations, to refuse when everyone expects a yes, to challenge harmful habits in those close to you, to choose honesty over artificial harmony. That doesn't mean being unkind or harsh. It means realizing that sincere care sometimes comes with difficulty, that love isn't always soft, that helping someone doesn't always mean telling them what they want to hear. Ask yourself this: how many of your current friendships would survive if you stopped being convenient? If you no longer said yes to everything, always showed up, always stayed cheerful? Diogenes tested this often, discovered revealing truths about human behavior. Most social bonds operate as unspoken trades. You boost my ego, I flatter yours. You approve of my life, I support your choices. You ignore my flaws, I overlook yours. It's a quiet agreement of mutual comfort. But Diogenes chose solitude with integrity over company built on pretense. For him, being alone and truthful was far better than being surrounded by people while having to wear a mask. That choice gave him insight into the nature of human connection. He could see who sought him out for selfish gain and who approached out of real care. The reality is, many of us cling to shallow relationships because we fear being alone. We accept average companionship rather than face solitude. But there's a major difference between loneliness and being left behind. Diogenes lived alone by decision but never felt deserted. He enjoyed his own presence and learned to appreciate it. That doesn't mean we should toss aside every flawed friendship. It means recognizing and treasuring the rare ones where full honesty is welcome and judgment isn't a threat. Walk through any modern city today, and Diogenes would instantly recognize the scene. A massive stage where people act out curated versions of themselves, each person playing both lead role and audience in the drama of their own carefully edited life. Some people try to appear wealthier by buying things beyond their means. Others display happiness by sharing only their highlight moments. Some act wiser by quoting popular phrases about self-growth. It's a grand collective performance, yet no one dares to admit they're acting. Diogenes rejected the stage entirely. He refused both the role of actor and that of the audience. And that refusal gave him a unique vantage point. He saw the artificiality that the performers themselves couldn't notice, too busy upholding their facades. But here's an intriguing counterargument. Maybe some performances serve a purpose. Perhaps pretending to be a better version of ourselves can sometimes push us toward genuine improvement. Maybe aiming for an idealized self, even if the start is superficial, can still be a path to growth. The key is distinguishing between healthy ambition and obsessive image maintenance, between the desire to truly evolve and the urge to simply appear more admirable. Diogenes helps us spot the difference, and it lies in our motivation. Are you aiming to grow for your own sake, or simply to win others' approval? There was a certain kind of person Diogenes especially despised, the one who mastered sounding intelligent without true understanding. These were people who knew the social scripts, who had a ready-made opinion for every topic, who could speak fluently about issues they'd only skimmed. This is a polished form of intellectual dishonesty. Instead of using their intellect to build sincere connection, they used it to craft an image of insight and competence. They're like lifelong politicians always campaigning for approval. Diogenes, on the other hand, took pride in admitting ignorance. When he didn't know something, he simply said so. When confused, he asked clear and direct questions. To him, pretending to know was a kind of cowardice, a fear of appearing ordinary or fallible. Our modern age has worsened this issue. With unlimited information at our fingertips, many mistake data access for wisdom. They confuse the ability to search with actual understanding, the skill of echoing facts with real knowledge. Yet there's an empowering irony here. The moment you stop trying to impress with your intellect, you can finally use it more meaningfully. When you no longer feel the need to prove you're an expert, you're free to focus on learning what truly counts. And that, paradoxically, makes you wiser than all the staged displays of intelligence. Diogenes owned nothing but a cloak and slept wherever night caught him. When he once saw a boy drinking water with cupped hands, he discarded his only cup, realizing he didn't need it either. To him, every possession he shed meant a little more freedom. Today, we do the exact opposite. We overcomplicate simple needs until they become rituals of sophistication. We no longer just drink water, we hydrate with designer beverages. We don't just eat, we indulge in curated culinary experiences. We don't simply dress, we construct identity statements through fashion. This enforced complexity is a quiet form of enslavement. When your well-being depends on specific things, those things start to control you. Your happiness becomes tied to whether you can access certain products, services, or curated experiences. Diogenes discovered a radical truth. The moment you learn to find contentment in simplicity, you gain a level of freedom that even the wealthiest can't reach. You can feel joy anywhere, with any free from external conditions. This isn't about glorifying poverty or choosing discomfort for its own sake. It's about asking, how many of our supposed needs are truly essential? And how many are just refined addictions we've designed to feel exceptional or superior? The word cynic today almost feels like an insult. To call someone cynical is usually to suggest they're bitter, jaded, or endlessly negative. But Diogenes' original cynicism was nothing like that. It was a method of mental purification, a kind of emotional hygiene against the illusions of society. To be cynical, in Diogenes' sense, meant having the bravery to pierce through the public performances. It meant speaking the truth when everyone else played along with the lie. It meant saying the emperor was naked while everyone admired imaginary garments. It meant challenging widely accepted beliefs that might just be shared anxieties. And right now, the world needs this kind of clarity more than ever. We're overwhelmed by contradictions, surrounded by self-declared experts, and bombarded by truths that shift week to week. We need the cynical mindset that dares to doubt, question, and seek proof. But here's the difference. Diogenes' cynicism still held on to hope. He criticized society not because he was bitter, but because he believed in its potential. His harshness came from care. He exposed hypocrisy not to humiliate people, but to help them escape it. Toxic cynicism tears down without building anything in its place. It points fingers without offering paths forward. But healthy cynics like Diogenes breaks illusions to clear the way for better, more grounded truths. One of the strangest pressures in modern life is the demand to always have an opinion. When tragedy strikes across the globe, you're expected to pick a side. When debate erupts online, you must take a stand. When someone close is hurting, you're expected to display the right kind of empathy. But Diogenes understood something we've forgotten. Sometimes, the most honest response is silence. If you don't deeply understand a situation, if you aren't truly connected to someone's pain, pretending to feel something is just another performance. It's more sincere to acknowledge what you don't know than to generate artificial compassion. Yet emotional performance has become a social currency. On social media, feelings are expected to be constant, always present, always visible, always intense. But real emotions don't behave that way. They're personal, selective, not something you can summon on command. There's something disturbingly inauthentic about people who respond with the same intensity to a personal loss and a viral headline, who grieve equally for a family member and for a cause they just discovered online. That's not emotional sensitivity, it's a kind of numbness disguised as empathy. Diogenes chose his causes carefully. He cared deeply about some things and paid no attention to others. And that selectivity was powerful, because it proved his emotions were genuine, not staged to gain approval. There's something beautiful in that restraint. In a world obsessed with constant reaction, Diogenes showed that sincerity doesn't always need to be loud. In the end, Diogenes confronts us with a fundamental decision that shapes every human life. Do you want to be free, or do you want to be approved? Because often, you can't have both. And eventually, you must decide which matters more. Social approval comes with clear instructions and predictable rewards. Be agreeable, be optimistic, be inclusive and empathetic. Endorse the right movements. Use the right vocabulary. Show the expected emotions. It's a secure pathone that leads to acceptance, praise, and even affection from the majority. But true freedom often demands something else entirely. It might mean disappointing others, going against the grain, choosing honesty over politeness, saying no when everyone expects a yes. And that choice might make you look stubborn, problematic, or even unlikable. Diogenes made his decision more than 2 millennia ago. He chose liberty over acceptance, integrity over popularity. He would rather be misunderstood and authentic than embraced for being something he wasn't. And in doing so, he found what many spend their whole lives chasing: a deep and lasting inner peace. Because once you stop needing others' validation to feel worthy, once your decisions arise from personal conviction instead of external pressure, you experience a stillness that no public admiration can match. Real virtue only exists when it comes from freedom, from a place where someone, fully aware of their own flaws, still chooses to do good. Without that freedom, morality loses its depth. It risks becoming nothing more than well-trained compliance fear rebranded as ethics. In the end, the ability to be free may be the only path to truly being good.